Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Mathyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Value 13 is asaktihi. What is absence of sense of ownership? If we forget our trusteeship, what is trusteeship? It means that we are endowed this body, this mind, this instrument with the capacity to think, to contemplate for the sake of the highest purpose in life, being moksha. If we forget that trusteeship, being endowed for that sole reason alone, then what's the consequence of that? Consequence is ownership. What is ownership? Ownership is whereby we forget our original role. It is as though we forget what are we originally here to do. We literally forget our intention, and therefore we start to own this body. We start to own this instrument, and then we use this instrument as though we are the sole creators of it. And therefore, our thinking and our relationship towards our own body, towards the environment, towards our friends, towards the relationships that we find ourselves within, we start to abuse and distort in different ways because we forgot the primary lesson, the primary number one thing to remember in life. And that is, I am endowed this instrument by Ishvara, by the Lord. Just like the Lord endows the body to everyone else for the sake of exhausting their own prarabdha karma, in that same way, Lord has endowed you, this body, this instrument, capable of listening right now for the sake of growing and expanding in the fullest human potential that you can possibly have or enjoy. Ownership transforms into excessive pride. By the way, there's nothing wrong with pride. However, unfortunately or fortunately, or either way, the word pride has been highly distorted in today's culture all across the world. Usually when we talk about pride, we think, hold your head up high, remember who you are, remember your roots, and don't let people walk all over you. This is a highly black or whitish way of describing pride. Pride just means the natural pride is natural self-confidence in yourself. That means you know where you're from, you know what you are, you know where you stand, you know your strengths. That transforms into a natural self-confidence in relationship to yourself and the world. Therefore, you do carry yourself up, quote, high, but it is not out of, let me carry myself up high. It is not a doing, it is a natural, innocent self-confidence. Ownership also manifests not only to pride, but also entitlements. I deserve, I need more of, this is mine, no more for me. In other words, we as though pretend like we're the sole creators of the world. So you can basically trace every distortion in the past, present, and future to this one single cause, forgetting that I am endowed this body by the Lord. Forget that, and it just starts a trajectory of distortions down the road. We start to abuse, we start to manipulate other bodies who are also endowed by the same intelligence that has given the privilege for this body to manipulate, to breathe, to be alive, to do all sorts of funny things. So we need to remember this number one, endowment. In fact, this is a great little banner, a little writing to have on your wall. Wake up. Who has given me this body? The Lord, the well-wisher for all of us, the limitless one, which is why every single human being is looking for what? Limitlessness. Why? Because everyone is endowed by the one body, unique to your specific talents, your unique karma, by the one whose nature is limitlessness. Therefore, everything in this world is for the sake of attaining that limitlessness. Of course, forgetting this trusteeship, then how do we go about obtaining this limitlessness? Through very finite objects, through finite experiences, through finite time-born events. Buying things, consuming things, having some status, being someone, being out there, being seen, and so on. However, it is all a representative of my pursuit towards the limitlessness. Therefore, if we change that relationship from ownership to trusteeship, then automatically we start to have a different relationship towards everything. Value 14, absence of obsession in respect to a beloved, someone that you are in the close proximity with, and therefore you find yourself there frequently. So what is anabhishwangaha? It is whereby you're caring for someone, you're guiding them, you're also nurturing them, these three words, caring, nurturing, and guiding, we can all put into this word love. I'm not going to define love yet because love cannot be quite defined. First, understand what is the absence of all of these qualities which distort love. That means you first have to get rid of all of the impurities, and what's left? Love. Therefore, love cannot be defined. So, what is anabhishwangaha? It is whereby you care, you nurture, and you do indeed guide that one who is close to you, your beloved. But you also keep in mind that they too, as I said earlier, are endowed this body. Therefore, they too have to undergo a unique set of experiences just for them. So if we forget this, then we start to infringe upon their right to be here. We literally start to infringe upon their right to exhaust their own karmic way in this life. And therefore, we start to control them. So if we forget trusteeship, then what happens? Love, which is caring, guiding, and nurturing, that love gets blended with sense of ownership. And what is sense of ownership? Other than a manifestation in the form of control. That means I have a need to control you, to make you act in a certain way. So what is anabhishwangaha? We do not mix up love and control. What is control?
Getting the other person to adhere to your likes and dislikes.
Let me put them inside, little puzzle there. They're my puzzle piece. Oh, they're falling out. No, let me put them back. Sometimes you want to put them in a corner, right? Sometimes you want to put them as a sun is sometimes just there in the, as a chair.
There's also a form of subtle control, putting out some directions, limitations, but having the expectations that family or their loved one should follow you on that direction.
I think it might come from a fear of loss of control, because people really don't know what's going to happen. We want to think that we have a good idea of what's going to happen, but really, do we know what's going to happen with anything, really?
Yeah, when we control ourselves, we're controlling passions. When we control someone else, we're asking them to conform to our values and our expectations of how they should behave.
So, Andre, when you're saying control, are you saying that this control, meaning when we have our self-interest, in mind more than the other person's interest? That is
good.
Control?
Yeah, good. So see, this is a great definition, Mina. So in other words, she's saying that if my interest is greater than someone else's, therefore I don't see, my interest has blinded me, and therefore I'm unable to see their interest. It's almost as though superimposed over another person's trajectory or their interest. Suppose that you give $50 to someone and you say to him or her, hold it for me, just hold it, keep it safe. And they say, absolutely. And then you start to kind of worry, it's my money. So then what do we start to do? We start to follow them around, right? Because we want to see, no, don't spend your money on that because it's my money, right? Yeah, spend your money and go over there and spend money on that. No, don't spend your money on that. So in other words, we start to follow them around, right? Almost like controlling them, because we have given them our power. We have given them our resource, our identity. We placed it into them. Therefore, what happens now? I want to modify their experiences because it is in my interest, because my well-being is placed in them, because I've given them the power away. So what is control? It is thus to place one's well-being into someone else's hands. Therefore, I want him or her to comply, as Lorena was saying, in a certain way so that my well-being may be preserved. My self-interest, according to Mina, may be preserved, right? So that I can feel good. So control thus ends up being dependency, because I've given them a certain power away. I've put a certain skill into their hands, a certain reality into them. And now they're carrying it forward, right? And so I say, you need to, move in a certain way. I need to preserve you for my sake, right? And then we start to depend upon them. Now, how does this dependency show? How does depending upon another person show?
A tendency to be validated.
Through attachment. I think when you're very attached.
Yeah. It's like clingy, like really clinging onto it. Yeah. Needy.
Insecurity.
And then it kind of turns into a manipulation, some words for the favor of the insecure one. Gayatri?
I guess if you love me, you would do what I say. So that means you're showing, like, if you are doing, like, I've got some form of control where I say you're going to show, if you're going to do this as I say you should do, that means you love me.
Sometimes I've observed controlling people just like the satisfaction of dominating another human being.
So how does dependency manifest? The most common is in the form of creating artificial vulnerabilities. I need you for you're the finance person, so I'm going to depend on you for the finances. Now what happens? I don't learn about finances. Oh, you're the emotional. You're there for my emotional support. You're the emotional support for the house. Therefore, what happens? I deny myself emotion management. Oh, you're the computer person. You fix the computer. I don't need to get into it. Therefore, I deny myself fixing the computer. So what is creating artificial dependencies? It is whereby we literally say, I don't know. We literally play stupid in a certain area, and then we pass that on to the other. And we say, okay, you're the finance person. You're the strength of the house. That means the one who made that claim now loses out on that very quality, which they have offloaded onto someone else. And then according to Robert, the complication gets added onto that. The other one starts to enjoy that. I kind of like this. They're dependent upon me. So I'm going to let them continue being vulnerable. Let them continue kind of depending upon me for a certain skill set, which means now I'm allowing the other person to continue denying themselves the skill which they could otherwise learn if they decide to take it into their own hands. How do we make a slight correction to this? It's okay to ask, therefore to be vulnerable, right? No problem with that. I'm asking and I'm being vulnerable. But where is there a distortion that comes out of that? When we literally create the entire dynamic in a relationship which thrives upon vulnerabilities. Oh, protect me. Okay, I'm going to protect you. So the one continues being this little innocent, that needs protection constantly. And the other one goes, oh, okay, no problem. I'll protect you there. That's called artificial vulnerability. Oh, you're so calm. I need your calmness. You're the calmness of the house. Yeah, I'm the calmness of the house. And you're not. That's right, I'm not. Therefore, I need you. Dependency. So therefore, there's nothing wrong by asking for help. Suppose there's a medical help, or someone generally depends upon you, and you're making it work. But to make the entire relationship thrive upon this sense of artificial dependency or vulnerabilities, that is a distortion.
Sometimes observed, particularly with men, they take a certain satisfaction in oppressing their wives, control their behavior. It's like a meanness that.
What does oppressing mean?
Exerting your power over someone so that they're oppressed by you. So they're put down by you and controlled by you.
Right. And you're saying that men get a satisfaction out of this?
Some people that like to control do get a satisfaction of demonstrating their power over somebody else.
If there were some examples that we could create, what would they be in respect to creating artificial dependencies? What does that look like? Give us some examples so we can concretely understand this idea.
I mean, a psychopathological one is Munchausen's syndrome. That's where the parent deliberately makes the child suffer, so then there's a need to care for the child.
I've seen parents that inhibit their children and don't let them have life experiences, telling them they'll be hurt or in danger. It undermines the child's confidence, and the child clings to the parent. So they actually control that way, make themselves more valuable by inhibiting the growth of their children. Right. Like what the rest just said.
So what do? We simply recognize, where am I giving my power away? What am I refusing to look myself? Like, which part am I offloading to him, to her? And then take ownership of that part. Choose to just simply take ownership of that part, at least for one day, and see what that's like. Right? Because what happens is, through the course of time, we literally don't even understand what we have given away. But when we go our separate ways, sooner or later upon death or something, then it's like, wow, I forgot how to stand on my 2 feet. What is control? Artificial vulnerabilities. Insisting they change. You must change, or implying they change. And then withdrawing the privileges. Okay, well, you're not complying, then I'm just going to withdraw. So how do we correct this? In other words, how do we remove this excess sense of obsession? How do we restore it back to its natural level? Number one, we need to learn to accommodate. What does it mean to accommodate? It means that every person's understanding in respect to your beloved has a different understanding. That means they will never have the exact same understanding as you. Impossible, because they come with their unique features, their unique life, right? So now, where's the question of obsession? Because obsession means I'm trying to own them, but they're also here with the same right to learn, right? To look at things in a different perspective as you are. Therefore, learn to accommodate. In fact, the indicator of growth is whereby you're able to accommodate another person's trajectory without insisting that they change it. Just simply being there, right? Showing your trajectory. If they capture it and kind of get attracted to it, they will follow it. If not, they won't follow it. It's simple as that. Second, in terms of correction, if you do find yourself saying, I need him or her, I need this person, I am empty without them, I'm incomplete without them, then simply recognize this. As an adult, we can't stand on our 2 feet. That's a fact. Therefore, when we capture ourselves next time going, I need them to, be my social support, my emotional support, my rational support, recognize this. Actually, I'm also endowed with the same capacity that every other individual is given. Because why? You're endowed by the one intelligence. Ishvara doesn't say, okay, so, this person's going to have less emotional support and this one's going to have more. Therefore, I'm going to bring them together so they can learn to be whole. That's not true. Every individual is endowed with the same capacity for both the left side of their brain and the right side of the brain equally. All that matters is whether you choose to exercise it or not. And thirdly, in terms of correction, if one thinks like a sannyasa, the highest level of thinking goes like this. And it may not sound good, but it's true. Ultimately, everyone is disposable. Everyone is disposable because everyone is within time. Ishvara alone is not disposable. Therefore, I can live with or without a person. That's a fact. Not this life, next life. Everyone is disposable ultimately.
Question about this 13th value, asakti. So value, you said that trusteeship, we have to develop the trusteeship of our mind, body, and the stuff that we say that we own. Sense of trusteeship is a result of the realization?
No.
Or is it something we need to develop to attain the realization? And when we don't have that actual jnanam, we tend to feel that this mind and body is mine.
Yeah,
and so everything that I own is of my own. So I'm finding it difficult to have that sense of trusteeship.
Okay. So this is a lovely question. So these are values which a person chooses to take on for the sake of qualifying their mind for self-knowledge. Therefore, this trusteeship is before moksha. Now, how do you develop this? It's not actually a development. It's an understanding. It's just a fact that everything is governed by the one intelligence, including the person that just spoke to me called Mina. The speech, the sound, the language, the letters were put together in a certain fashion to create words, meaningful words that were then understood, right? And now the heart's beating and the cells are, the blood's flowing up and down. All of this is done for you. You're on the ground. Gravitational laws are working. All of it is this grand order called Ishvara. The one that entrusted the sky, the laws for the sky to work, the rain to fall, the sun to shine, the planets to revolve, trees to grow, to give fruit, seeds to germinate, the grass to stop growing at a certain length, your hair to stop growing at a certain length. Did you ever notice that? How the hair knows when to stop growing? Yeah. All of this is intelligence. So therefore, there's no question of development. It's just an understanding. It's owning up to that understanding. This is a fact. And therefore, starting to live through that fact. So we're pointing it out. It is a fact. So now the student's job is to say, okay, So having been given this fact, let me look around. Everything is given, including this person is given. Tomorrow you wake up, okay. Everything is given around me, including this person is being given. So you start to understand this through your own experience, because the experience is the only thing that you have, your own experience. And that experience is not away from this very intelligence. Therefore, you use your experience being endowed with different laws, psychological, physiological, electromagnetic, gravitational, karma, dharma. All of these laws are endowed, making this person called Meena do what she's doing right now. Thinking, asking, inquiring, having an interest. In fact, we're just, listening, and the words are going to our ears, and the brain is processing all of this in the background. We're not trying to, we're not taking one dendrite connected to the other, and having the interconnections between two brain hemispheres. It's all done for us. So that understanding is what it means that all that is here is God. And that God that is right now, I own up to. Now, this is not about knowledge yet, but you own up before knowledge takes place, because that is a fact. And this fact leads to totally owning up even the ahamkara to the Lord.
You're saying that understanding is enough, because in my behavior, especially if someone touches my stuff or takes my stuff, especially my brothers and sisters, I fight a lot. At that time, I don't have that understanding.
Okay.
But after that fight is over and I just have to settle my emotion, then this understanding, comes up and I feel,
Sure.
okay, I'm just a trustee.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, I'm going to tell a story a little bit later to demonstrate the how we're often taught. We're often taught that if you have a fight or, in a quarreling situation, and then suddenly you just resort to this wisdom and you go, okay, everything's okay here. It's all grand order. No. You need to act. Okay, value 15, nityam sama chittatvam, sameness of the mind.
Here, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, always nityam, maintain the sameness of mind. Samachittavam, in the wake of likes or dislikes. Do not be elated over getting what you want, nor be dejected when you get what you do not want. Accept results as they come factually. If an accident occurs, with sameness of mind, assess the situation and do what is required. If some venture fails, look at the facts, learn from them and do whatever is now needed. View all situations as they occur factually, with a mind unshaken by emotional intensity, a mind that calmly decides what is to be done and directs the doing of it. When something happens that you like, do not get elated. A mind that becomes ecstatic when it gets what it thinks it wants will also hit the bottom when loss or failure occurs. Samchitta is the state of mind that does not swing between elation and depression, but remains in equilibrium regardless of situation. Successful, unsuccessful, joyful, sorrowful, conducive, non-conducive, and so on.
When I face every situation with a mind that neither gets elated nor depressed, I will be objective. The attitude of samachittatva is another example of reducing subjective response to factual acceptance. More often than not, we resist accepting facts. When we refuse to accept facts, facts become problems. When we hear unpleasant or sad news, our first response usually is outright rejection of the facts or to delay acceptance. The following response, attributed to a great Stoic philosopher upon hearing tragic news, illustrates reduction of facts to facts. The philosopher who was waiting for the news of the safe arrival of a large sailing ship carrying his wife and children and all his wealth answered a knock on his door and found a breathless messenger who said, "Sir, the ship carrying your family and wealth has sunk." "What? The ship has sunk. So what?" "Sir, you have lost all your wealth." "What? Your fortune is gone." "So what?" "Sir, nothing was salvaged. You are penniless." "What? You are a pauper." "So what?" "Sir, no one survived. You have lost your wife and children." "What? You are a childless widower." "So what?" When the philosopher each time said what, it was neither because he had not heard the words, nor because he had failed to understand the sentence. He had heard and he had understood, but he said, what? Because at first he refused to accept it. Since it was not acceptable, he said, what? Not to the messenger really, but to himself. It was his initial refusal to accept the particular facts that each time made him first say, what? But being a philosopher, he did not hang on to non-acceptance.
Okay, thank you.
The ship is sunk, so what? There's nothing I can do about it. I'm a pauper. Well, so what? I am penniless. I made money and lost it. Now I'll work to make it again. My wife and children are gone. Grief and despair won't bring them back. They're gone. That is a sad fact. I assimilate the facts and do what is required of me under the circumstances. There are pleasant facts and unpleasant facts. There are comfortable facts and uncomfortable facts. And all the time the facts keep changing, now pleasant, now not so pleasant, now comfortable, now uncomfortable. The weather is too hot. The weather is just right. The weather is too cold. I feel on top of the world. I come down with the flu. Each day brings facts of all kinds. My job is to greet all facts with sameness of mind. I accept and enjoy the comfortable facts for what they are, the facts of the moment. Similarly, I accept without reaction the uncomfortable facts for what they are. I simply do whatever the situation calls. If I can make an uncomfortable fact more comfortable, I do so. If I can't, I accept and do whatever is required. The factual response is the approach to the situation of a truly practical person. One is most practical when one sees the situation objectively. This is real human strength. Human strength is not found in powerful miracles, but in the quiet mind of the one who faces situations as they are. Such a one is a strong person. Human weakness is the inability to accept situations, to face facts. Human strength is the strength of reducing situations to simple facts.
Before defining constant equanimity, let's ask, what is superficial equanimity? What we generally do is we divide the world into two emotions, positive and negative. Positive, empathy and happiness. Negative, jealousy and sadness. So then what happens? There's a tendency to move towards the positive, not even knowing what the positive even means. But anyway, we're moving towards the positive, and then we're avoiding the negative. So what happens then? We create an artificial positive composure. Artificial positive composure, APC, right? That's a new term to add into the therapy. So you got APC. What's that? I'm very positive. I can take on anything. Well, APC is artificial positive composure, because we have put things into positive and we're putting down the negative. This is generally how we are trained to go about dealing with these two extremes, two polarities. We bury things that are, quote, negative. We don't even know what negative is, but we just bury it. Anything that resembles jealousy, and we just put it down. We don't even look at it. We just say, it's just popping up, put it down and get distracted about something else. So the first step is stop defining or putting things into good, bad, positive, negative, because it is a highly surface way of looking at things. It doesn't require much thought. So there's one story to demonstrate this positive, negative, whereby there was a village. And in the village, there were families, each having horses of their own. The horses were the currency. So whoever had horses like cows was rich. One of the family's horses ran away. So then the villagers came over to the father, who was the owner of the horses. And the villagers said to the father, oh, we are so sorry. We sympathize for your loss of the horse because, it's a big deal to lose a horse. We sympathize for you. And then the father, the wise father, right, goes, good or bad, who knows? Next day, the horse returns with 4 more horses. And then the father's rich, right? And then the villagers notice this. Some of them are kind of envious, no, such a rich person now. Some of them very happy, genuinely happy. So they'll go to the father and say, oh, you're so lucky. You got 4 extra horses. You're 4 times richer now, the richest in the entire village. The wise father, right, goes, good or bad, who knows? Next day, the father's son is riding the horse. Maybe they're happy from what happened the day before. And then the son falls and breaks leg. The son at home, the villagers arrive, and they all say to the father, they all sympathize. Oh, we're so sorry that this happened, because the boy was meant to be the pride of the family. And then the wise father goes, good or bad, who knows? The next day, the state's king recruited all the youth in the villages for the army. So the ministers of the king, came over and fetched all the youth. And then they seeing this, broken leg boy. They said, we cannot have this boy because his leg is broken. And then the villagers are all lamenting their loss of their children having gone to the army. And now they notice the father, his son is still there. So they all go to the father happily, right? All kind of sad, some of them, for their own child. And you're so lucky, so fortunate that your son didn't go. Father, good or bad, who knows? What did you pick up from the story? I mean, it sounds wise on the surface, doesn't it? Right? There's a certain wisdom if you put it in the right context. But suppose you say this to a child, right? Suppose you're the wise father who now tells him or her the story because you're trying to, prove, you're trying to show something, trying to teach them something. What will your kids pick up?
It's all relative. It's all relative.
It could be a possibility of them becoming almost nihilistic.
That their actions might not have any consequences, or they don't have to be responsible for the consequences of
whatever has to happen will happen.
Right. So one of the things they will definitely pick up, good or bad, you really don't know, right? Things will happen the way they will happen. So don't get too caught up with I'm so lucky, because next day, if you're unlucky, you'll be so disappointed in contrast to yesterday. However, more than that, the kids may also pick up, so no matter what happens, just have no emotion. Just be like, okay, whatever, right? Don't care. Don't get involved. In other words, the person becomes like a stone, like cold, right? Non-responsive. Sorry, sir, the one that's been telling the story, I just got a call, your house got burned down. Good or bad, who knows? I don't think so. I don't think someone will say that. So it's easy to say these stories, but in real life, it's actually not like that. So we cannot put these emotions into just good or bad. Even though it sounds wise on the surface, there is much more that needs to be looked into. So emotions are indicators for 2 possibilities. Emotions indicate 2 things. The first is Ishvara Srishti's order. What is Srishti? Creation. When there's a loss of a loved one, there's a natural grief. Depends on your relationship with them, of course, but there's a sense of loss. Natural order. You're not going to say good or bad, who knows, to that if someone close to you dies. So this is Ishvara's natural order. Or for example, if you violate something that is against the law, right? You've done something that is illegal. There's a sense of guilt. This is Ishvara Srishti's law. This is natural. It cannot be eliminated. So emotions indicate, number 1, Ishvara Srishti. Number 2, Jiva Srishti. This is person's own anxieties in respect to what should happen into the future. So we create our own imaginary ideas about how things should be. And then on the basis of our imagination, we have a certain emotional response. Now, when value 15 talks about having equanimity, Do you think it's about having equanimity towards number 1, Ishvara Srishti, or number 2, Jiva Srishti?
Jiva Srishti.
Jiva Srishti, why Jiva Srishti?
Because that's in our control.
Because that you can control, yeah? Why not Ishvara Srishti?
It's not appropriate.
Yeah, it's not appropriate. Why would you try to have equanimity towards a natural order of the universe? Your son falls, breaks leg. What's the response? Ishvara Srishti, loss. But suppose we get trained, have equanimity, and then we say, good or bad, who knows? This is how wisdom gets distorted. If we don't define what specifically we're talking about, we start to equalize, or we start to manage a natural order that shouldn't be managed. It is just there as an indicator, but then we end up suppressing it. Something happens close to us, good or bad, who knows? Inappropriate. Therefore, equanimity deals with Jiva Srishti. When we have thoughts of our own creation, our own superimpositions based on our own likes and dislikes, then we have to apply equanimity towards that. So what is equanimity? Let's go back to the book. When something surprising happens, someone gets hurt, you get a phone call. Something surprising happens. First reaction, what? But then what follows right afterwards? What comes to rescue? The buddhi. The buddhi takes the what with a big exclamation mark. It captures it, and then it looks at it and it refines it. The what is referring to this personal interpretation. Jiva Srishti. Impulsive or mechanical thinking. Remember those 4 levels, types of thinking that we did? First impulsive, second mechanical. So this what refers to those 2 thinking. Suppose I just react. I see you crying, and then I immediately react. Oh, where's the tissue? And I go, here's a tissue, you're crying. You're in a sad state. Is this appropriate?
It's too quick a reaction. You've got to show that you're taking in the feeling before you just do a quick action here.
You're making it about yourself.
Yeah, like when I cancel out the crying, quick, take a tissue.
Yeah, she could be chopping onions, right? So we don't know why they're crying, but then we just assume, okay, crying tissue, it's like a robot, instantly. So therefore, this is what, right? Without the buddhi coming to rescue, then we make a mistake like this. Of course, the feedback comes later, and then we can, learn from that. The so what has 2 meanings. The first meaning is when the buddhi assesses this raw reaction and then immediately refines it on the basis of the knowledge that it has in respect to itself, the person, and different possibilities that are potential in this particular situation. That means the knowledge comes in from the buddhi. And this we have to train ourselves. Because even an expert at a particular field, a rocket scientist, for example, they deal with space propulsion. They are so what in their field, right? So what? We can deal with this. Oh, sir, the rocket is about to explode. So what? We can deal with this, right? They come home. What? Therefore, we need to train ourselves to spill this so what thinking across every area that we find ourselves, as though the entire world is your area of expertise. If you go there, if you go elsewhere where it's unfamiliar, you still carry your discerning buddhi with you, because that is the only refuge that we have. The second meaning of so what is understanding that this entire universe, as I said earlier to Mina, is perfectly ordained by cause-effect relationship. There's a perfect one-to-one relationship between now and something that's happened a moment ago or a year ago or 10 years ago. Even if we don't know about it, there is still a trace back to some other event. The world today that we are experiencing is a result of the world yesterday. The world yesterday is a result of the world 2 days ago. The world 2 days ago is a result of the world 200,000 years ago. The world 200,000 years ago is a result of the world 4.3 billion years ago. In other words, all we're experiencing today is the sum collective totality of what's happened in the past. 2005, I think, was it 2000, and when the iPhone came out, we were using, when did the iPhone come out, right? When Steve Jobs went on 2007, came onto the stage with an amazing new innovation idea. Look at the world today. Big effect. In other words, the world today is a result of, also because of that very event that took place at Apple. What we're experiencing today is the collective of everything that's happened in the past. And this past is perfectly ordained through Ishwara's grand order in different laws that are taking place that are making all of this possible. Therefore, one takes on, meaning two, the attitude of karma yoga. What is karma yoga? It means that everything is given. Everything here is given by this one and made possible through this one intelligence. Therefore, the person starts to remind themselves that every experience is personally customized just for you. You may not know it, you may not appreciate it, but it's still, there's a trace back to something that's happened in the past. Everything is Ishwara Prasada. That means Prasada means gift. Everything is a gift of God. If you take on this attitude, which is karma yoga, then managing the what's becomes much easier, because every what is nothing but an effect of something that's taken back place in the past.
Does the so what include our emotional reactions after saying having a shock of what? Does the so what include our emotional reaction, like you said, the bond to a mother or a father, the relationship?
Absolutely, because there's an emotional reaction Ishwara Srishti and there's an emotional reaction Jiva Srishti. If the Jiva Srishti, the superimpositions are stronger, then they will cloud that innocent first emotional reaction, the birth of someone, for example, that innocent joy. Value 10, Vairagyam, dispassion through objectivity. Value 11, Anahankaraha, healthy eye sense, neither inflated nor deflated. Value 12, Anudarshanam, reflecting upon those fivefold limitations. Value 13, Asaktihi, absence of ownership. Value 14, Anabhishwangaha, absence of obsession towards our beloved. Value 15, Nityam Samachittatvam, constant equanimity.
Does this constant equanimity means having a calm, serene composure in all the situations?
Why would you want to deliberately retain a calm composure? For the sake of preserving the capacity to think. Because the moment we let this emotion tip over for its favor, the capacity to think starts to go down. So only remain as calm as is necessary for you to actually get yourself, rationally to solve the problem, to deal with the confrontation or whatever is going on. But sometimes we take this into an extreme. We say, okay, so, like the what is so what with the story that I said, with the Stoic story, right? And therefore this calmness turns into a superficial wisdom, right? I'm wise and therefore I'm calm. Nothing affects me. This is again going into a jiva srishti, a personal interpretation of what is wisdom. So yes, there is a level of calmness, but you're not trying to be calm. You're calm out of your own training in the past, knowing that, hey, what is in front of me? Let's deal with it. And therefore you deal with what is, instead of saying, okay, let me first be calm and then let me deal. So you're focusing on what's in front of you, sticking with the facts. This is called objectivity.
I still don't understand, what actually this value is trying to tell us. So even in these small situations, like when I'm learning in this class, and when I start having some doubts or I don't get anything, and I start having some confusions, and until I ask the question, I feel a kind of restlessness. So does that mean, am I not into some chitvam state right now? So with this example, I feel that some chitvam is not possible if we are in a situation, which requires an emotional response.
Which example?
Like when I'm feeling restless, in a situation, some chitvam is not practiced, is not possible. So if in emotional situations, being some chitvam is not possible, then what is the significance of this particular value?
The significance of this value is to, despite your restlessness, you're still focusing on what needs to be done, instead of subscribing to the overwhelming situation in front of us. Oh no, So we just kind of stay stuck in this, oh no, or what? Enough of what's. Now let's start thinking what next.
Okay,
So what?
So not losing the focus and not getting lost.
Yeah. So in other words, you bring in the Buddha. It doesn't mean like, okay, you can only bring the so what if you have a perfect composure on your face. It's got nothing to do with how a person looks on their outside. They're just simply dealing with what is factually and addressing the what's in front of us. It doesn't mean a certain composure of, it's kind of quiet. You can raise your voice, but whatever is appropriate in that moment. There's no like definitive signature.
Is it similar to what Jasmina said, and the fact that she was feeling restless during the class was going on, but she didn't disrupt the class. So that is equanimity, isn't it? A bit of equanimity. She's pausing even though she's restless until her right time comes to ask the question.
Yeah, and also add to that, Mina applied the very equanimity. How? Restlessness was the what? And then she asked the question to inquire into the restlessness. And that was the so what? That was the intellect coming in, inquiring about what is going on with my experience. So in other words, she proved to us now the very workings of this constant equanimity. Value 16 would be ananya-bhakti. By the way, you'll notice how we're coming closer towards self-knowledge. This is how these values are evolving.
This entire line expresses the value of steadfast devotion to the Lord, devotion characterized by non-separateness from him. Lord Krishna, identifying himself as the Lord, describes the value unswerving devotion by not combining with any other in me. It refers to a steady, unswerving devotion due to the recognition of my non-separateness from the Lord. Non-separateness from the Lord can be seen in two ways. Either non-separateness means that the Lord is not separate from me. This is a view that comes when I know the truth of the Lord, of myself and the creation. From this knowledge, I can see that the Lord is never away from me. He is I am never away from the Lord. I am indeed non-separate from him. Or we can also say that the non-separateness is in terms of seeing the Lord as my refuge. For me, there is no refuge other than Parameshwara. The Lord is everything. He is my security. He is the source of my inspiration. By his laws comes the results of my acts. He is the giver of the fruits of all actions, karma phaladata.
Devotion based on the second way of looking at the Lord is very helpful in preparing my mind for self-knowledge, in which I can see my total non-separateness from him. It is through devotion to the Lord as the one who gives the results of action that I can maintain that poise of mind called samachittatva, described in the last value. There it was said that samachittatva, sameness of mind in the face of desirable or undesirable results, is made possible by reducing all situations to facts. Easy to say, but how do I bring about a factual attitude towards all that comes my way? This factual attitude, samachittatva, will come when I view all results as coming to me directly from the hands of the Lord.
So value 16, ananya-bhakti, unswerving devotion to Ishvara. You know what the most common objection is in Vedanta? If I'm not away from Ishvara, then why should I devote or pray to Ishvara, which supposedly implies Dvaitam?
Acknowledging the higher power, the divine intelligence that creates everything and gets everything to be existing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, super answer. As long as you live, as long as I live, you and I, as individuals, have limited power and knowledge. There's no question about that. Our lives are in the hands of Ishvara's grand order. That's a fact. We don't choose when this body will die. We don't choose when this body will get born. We don't choose the parents. It is provided for us. So an entire world that we rely upon is governed by different laws, as we said previously, psychological laws right now, causing you to sustain your composure, equanimity, right? Calm. Physiological, biological, chemical, electromagnetical, gravitational, karma laws. That means today you're a product of yesterday, and dharma. Dharma is causing you to not hurt yourself. The person wants to live one more day. Why? Because dharma is an operation. When a person commits suicide, that means they're now over, that means their jiva srishti is overlapping Ishvara srishti. That means become so strong, they're able to override the program to want to live one more day. So all of these laws are keeping us, including the individual who made that question and said, if everything is Ishvara, then why should I devote myself to Ishvara, including him or her, by the same laws. Also, a wise person wouldn't ask such a question, because as Lorena so rightfully put, the wise person was also pulled out of samsara because of this vast intelligence. Therefore, why ask the question? Why should I devote to the Lord? Why not? And how was the wise person, the Jivan Muktaha, the Jnani, pulled out of samsara? First stage. His or her relationship before knowledge took place, their relationship towards Ishvara changed, towards the world. The world was no longer the world. They started to see the world differently now, in a form of these laws that are governing the world as it is. Therefore, they started to see Ishvara in the form of these laws everywhere. How do you see Ishvara? Time. Time is not apart from Ishvara. How do you know Ishvara? Well, the one that's asking that is also governed by the laws that are governed by Ishvara. Therefore, first step, they started to change their relationship to the world. What more is there than what I see before me? Before me, I used to see people, trees, this, but what is behind the person? What is behind the tree? What is behind the sky, the light, the daylight? What is holding all of this together? Therefore, what is behind things? First step. And what does this involve? To start to see Ishvara everywhere, you need to start settling accounts with the world. As long as Jiva Srishti means Jiva's own creation, is in operation, it will keep on overlapping the world, the subjective world, with its own notions. Before one can settle accounts with the entire totality, they need to, which is called moksha, they first need to settle accounts with the world, which is why I keep on stressing. We cannot escape because the world is not apart from Ishvara. I need Ishvara for my success. And Ishvara demands one to settle their accounts with Ishvara in the form of those people that we're not settling accounts with. No cheating here. That's the beauty about this system. That's why there's no spiritual bypassing. Also, we need to understand that even though it seems like things are out of order, like violence, they're not out of order. They're actually in perfect order. Because take what is violence? What is a serial killer, for example? We often generalize, serial killer, and then we just stop there. We don't look behind the person. We don't look at the story. We don't look at the parents, the abusive background they brought from. Maybe they have got some drugs in the system, diluting their intellect, their sense of discernment. That's a possibility. Maybe they got angry because someone else hurt someone that's dear to them, and they're just taking it out innocently on a society. There's so many things that's making this person that we label as one word criminal. So many things are going on to make them who they are today. This is also order in operation. So in other words, every effect that we see today is preceded by some cause. We may not know the cause. In fact, we often don't because our mind's too limited to know, but it is nevertheless preceded by a cause that stems from generations back, generations upon generations back. Why is the Australian accent the Australian accent? Why don't we have the British accent? What took place to change it? Take anything in this world and ask, what made it so? Many, many, many causes in the past. So therefore, in the apparent disorder, there is actually a perfect order owing to this cause-effect relationship that's holding it together and making it to what it is. So knowing that this cause-effect relationship is in operation, how does this apply to you and I now? We need to start creating favorable causes in order to produce favorable effects in the future because of this cause-effect relationship. And how do we do this? How do we create favorable causes in the present? Well, there are several techniques. One of them is called tapas in the Vedic teaching. Tapas. What is tapas? Tapas is to deliberately abstain from destructive habits. Therefore, you deliberately hold yourself back from something that is damaging in nature, a behavior, and then you introduce a much more healthier behavior that is less impulsive. Now, before I give you examples, why is this important? Because how do human beings start out? We start out impulsive generally. For example, what would most prefer? Immediate small gain or future big gain? What do most prefer? Immediate small gain. If most preferred a big future gain, consumerism would die. I mean, the economy would suffer because no one will be buying things. We can start to see how there's no negative or positive to either, because you're only benefiting, enjoying the life that you have because of consumerism. Therefore, we don't put things into black or white because everything has its parts. It's actually helping you from a relative standpoint. Or how about when a person exits one relationship? What do? Impulsively go right into the next one. In other words, what am I coming to the next one for? Out of a need. Instead of saying, why do I even need one? Both cases, reaction. Several examples of tapas. Pratipaksha bhavana. What is pratipaksha bhavana? Someone remind me?
Seeing the positive qualities of someone instead of the negative qualities.
Catch yourself with that first initial what, and then say, so what? Let's look at it in a different way. What can I admire about this person that I would otherwise judge them and put a full stop on? Because that's the reaction. So therefore, we stop ourselves and we say, what, as Thomas was saying, what something that's more in tune with a human being can I see in this person? What can I admire about them? What can I learn from them? Another example of tapas that is deliberately bringing in behaviors which are more intentional in nature is fasting. What's an extreme version of tapas? Doing only tapas the entire life. Constant techniques, applying techniques one after the other. The other version, extreme, is the silence. The silence where I don't want to speak to anyone because it's going to disturb my mind. No speaking for 1 year. Being quiet doesn't make you wise.
I heard they end up talking in their sleep.
Still talking inside. So what difference does it make, right? You're not talking on the outside, but inside still chatter going on. So being quiet doesn't make you wise. What makes you wise? Thinking clearly makes you wise. In fact, what does this quietness do? It dulls the mind, because if the mind's not using its linguistic capacity, it starts to introduce dullness, tamas inside. You can be the biggest chit-chat in the world and still be extremely wise. As long as the chit-chat is, so what? That means there's buddhi in there. Not chit-chat with what. That's called complaining. Prayerfulness. What's the purpose of prayer? We said, there is no effect. Effect means something that is going to happen. That means a consequence without a cause. That means if you put out a cause called a prayer, you're literally introducing a new cause into the variable, into the field of variables. And therefore, you are favorably modifying potentially the effect in the future. I say potentially because often, what's the distorted version of this? Law of attraction, whereby the whole teaching is about just put out the message out there and you will receive it. Think it and you will receive it. The think and grow rich method, the law of attraction, the secret method, right? In other words, what are they neglecting? Sure, they got this prayerfulness right there, but what's being neglected? The lack of understanding about the laws here. Ishvara doesn't bias itself towards someone just because they're using a technique and saying, please Ishvara, may I be healthy? Suppose someone's dying on the bed and they want to go and you're saying, oh Ishvara, please let them be healthy. But they want to go. Therefore, if the person doesn't understand this and I say, oh, they're dead. See, they die. So law of attraction doesn't work. It does work. But where's the error? Where did the error get made? The person thought that it is absolute. It's supposed to work every single time. No, you're simply introducing another variable possibility into the field, therefore affecting the future, but not always, because sometimes it is not in the highest and greatest good for you to receive what you're asking for. But then people generalize this. They say, well, see, prayers don't work. It may work or it may not work, but you're still introducing a positive variable into the field. Then we got japa. It's whereby you have a recurring focus upon an object of meditation. A common one is take a mala, the 108 mala string, and then you can put something in your mind, imagine some object, and then that mala is just used to keep you on track. Every time your object changes into something else, you stop counting. So that mala is to help you focus almost like 108 times onto that object again and again. Just keep it there, keep it there, keep it there. Every time you just keep on moving the mala, back 108 times. So this is japa, repetitive concentration on one object at a time for the sake of helping the mind to concentrate. The book also mentioned karma pala data. In other words, we need to keep in mind that Ishvara is the karma pala data, karma action pala fruit data giver. In other words, he or she is the giver of the results of our jiva actions. Once we decide through our given free will, which is another order given by Ishvara, once we use that and make a decision, that's it. That's where your sphere of influence stops. Now your action has gone into the field and it will bring back results according to whatever the combination of the total variables that came together, thus gladly accepting whatever comes to us. This may be unpleasant, but hey, it is still directly from the Lord's hands. Not from over there, because over there is nothing but the grand order in a form of over there. Therefore, everything we receive is only from him, from her. How do you have proper, effortless equanimity? Prior value 16, understanding that it is all ordained by the Lord. If I don't understand that, then this equanimity turns into a technique. Let me remain composed, right? It's all fake. Let me remain composed. No, because that's how wise people are. So that's how I'm going to be. It's all fake. So there's an understanding. Whatever happens, pleasant or unpleasant, it is still ordained by this vast grand order. Owing to that understanding, there's a natural equanimity that follows along. So the prior value, constant equanimity, is nothing but a manifestation of this value. So therefore, we start to take on this world as a gift of God, prasada. When? Right now, not tomorrow. The air that you're breathing right now, that is a gift of God, isn't it? Yeah, element of air, vayu. Therefore, there's no question of over there. He's over there. He's right here, right now, making all of this possible. The original statement that we mentioned was the wise person understands this intelligence pulled him or her out of this ocean of samsara. How? Step one, I described. Their relationship, his or her relationship, changed in the respect of seeing everything as this one vast intelligence manifesting as the orders which are making us be the way that we are and making this universe be the way that it is. Through that understanding and repetition of that understanding, the next stage, the final stage, is then the wise person comes and says, okay, now let me come to that knowledge, knowing which all of these laws I understand to be nothing but myself. Therefore, the person comes to understand, intimately know that I and Ishvara, our final reality is actually not two. There is no Ishvara that's doing all of this. This is all manifestation of myself. That's the last stage. And this stage we're going to, of course, go to in verse 13 when we come out of these values. Now, what was the name of this value? Ananya-bhakti. Now, how does all of this that I just said relate to ananya-bhakti? Both stage 1 and stage 2 that this wise person went through, both of these stages are ananya-bhakti. Unswerving devotion. Unswerving devotion in the stage of not knowing my fullest nature. Unswerving devotion in a stage of knowing my full nature. Either way, it is ananya-bhakti, unswerving devotion. How can you not devote when the nature of Ishvara is devotion? The entire existence nature is devotion, which we also call love. So where's the question of why should I devote? Why should I pray? Why should I prostrate to the Lord when I am one with him? Where's the question of that? The expression of love of a wise person is devotion. That's just a byproduct of their understanding about themselves not being apart from this vast universe, which they apparently find themselves in, when in reality, this entire universe is inside of the wise person, which we call Ishvara. Ishvara the Jnani. So let's close. Okay, so what is ananya-bhakti? Living a reverential life, knowing I am swimming in God right now. You're in the ocean of God right now. Smile, breathing, looking, your experience is all God right now. Every role that you're playing is in Ishvara Srishti, made possible by Ishvara Srishti. Therefore, one suggestion is we can start to see this world as a sacred school, no longer the world, but as a sacred school, a school where teaching takes place. Now what of being in this school? Well, we can lighten up because it's not as serious as we thought it is. One little aspect, tiny sand in this vast, infinite intelligence, nothing to worry about, because this one intelligence has been taking care of this entire universe since beginningless beginning. What is there to worry about? What is there to worry about after death? There is nothing but God here. You're only going from God into God into God. Vast intelligence is right here, right now, whether alive, whether dead. It is only one. Therefore, we can start to get curious in this sacred school while being in this apparent body. We can start to have gratitude for everything that happens in this world. And we can start to find cheer in ordinary things. God becomes your only refuge, your best friend, your lover, your mother, your father, your child. He or she becomes everything for you because you're only swimming in God right now. Summary of names. Let's revise. Value 13. Repeat. Asaktihi. Absence of sense of ownership. Value 14. Anabhishwangaha. Absence of obsession. Value 15. Nityam samachitatvam. Constant equanimity. Value 16. Ananya-bhakti. Unswerving devotion. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.